The XF85 Goblin was a unique aircraft designed specifically to be a Parasite fighter, intended to be carried aboard bombers. It was the only U.S. Air Force aircraft conceived from the start with this purpose in mind. Unlike the Republic RF-84K Thunderflash, which was later converted for similar use, the XF-85 was built from scratch for this role. Designed by Herman D. Barkey, the XF-85 was meant to be stored in one of the bomb bays, either the number 1 or 4 of the B-36 Intercontinental bomber. Once the bomber was over the target area, the XF-85 would be released to defend the B-36 from enemy fighter aircraft. The XF-85 Goblin had a very distinctive design, tailored to its unusual role as a Parasite fighter. It featured 36-degree swept wings that could fold upward from the base to allow for storage inside its carrier bomber. The aircraft also had an unusual X-shaped tail, although its flight controls were otherwise conventional. To dock with its bomber, the XF-85 was equipped with a probe, or skyhook, which was designed to latch onto a trapeze lowered from the bomber, a process that required precision, much like threading a needle. The Goblin was powered by a Westinghouse J34WE-12 turbojet engine, which provided 1,360 kilograms of thrust. In 1947, indoor tests began to evaluate how the XF-85 Goblin would connect with a mock-up of a B-36 bomber fuselage. Unfortunately, while being positioned in the wind tunnel, the aircraft fell 12.2 meters, sustaining significant damage and had to be sent back repair. On June 5, 1948, second XF-85 was transported to Muroc Air Force Base in California. Since a B-36 bomber was not available for testing the Parasite fighter concept, experiments were conducted using an EB-29B Superfortress instead. Edwin Forsman Schach, a former U.S. Navy F-6F Hellcat pilot with 4 air combat kills in the Pacific War, was the only man ever to fly the XF-85. His first flight almost ended in disaster. His first attempt nearly killed him. On 23 August 1948, Schach was attempting to re-engage the bomber's trapeze when he slammed into it, shattering his canopy, ripping his helmet off, and knocking him unconscious. Schach recovered in time to make a shaky landing on the XF-85's underside skid in the Muroc Desert, damaging the plane. On October 14, 1948, during the second test flight of the XF-85 Goblin, things finally seemed to go right. The aircraft was successfully released in mid-air and reconnected with the bomber's trapeze system without any issues. However, in the next 3 attempts, pilot Ed Schach struggled to control the challenging Goblin, and each time he failed to reattach to the bomber. Instead, he had to make emergency belly landings in the desert. On April 8, 1949, the original XF-85 made its first and only flight. Due to budget constraints that year, the XF-85 program was quietly discontinued. However, the Strategic Air Command later took an interest in the concept of a Parasite fighter when it became possible to carry an RF-84K aboard a B-36. The first XF-85 is now on display at the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, while the second is at the Strategic Air Command Museum in Omaha, Nebraska.